Hello, I am taking on a challenge to beat every playable Nintendo published game. The next game is Game & Watch Safebuster. Safebuster was the 13th game in the Game & Watch multi-screen series. It was released exclusively in the West in June of 1988. That's right, Nintendo was still dropping a few of these well into the NES's life. In fact, 1988 ended up being a more active year for the Game & Watch compared to the previous one, releasing 5 total games instead of just 1. Although, to be fair, 3 of them were re-releases. This increase in Game & Watch output lines up with a small boost in sales too, as they sold over 2 million units in 1988, a number they hadn't reached since 1984. This was in part due to the new widescreen version of Super Mario Bros. Doing well, but also, according to fan estimates, Safebuster still managed to crack around 500,000 sales, which was a bit better than most of the other units from around this time. Of course, these numbers pale in comparison to the Game & Watch's glory days, but despite how deep we are into the NES's life, the Game & Watch is still managing to carry on for just a bit longer. Alright, let's jump into my time with Safebuster. Once again, we have unique characters on the cover, although the story of this one only gets a single sentence. You play as a diligent bank guard trying to protect a safe from the attacks of a wily bomber. In this game, Wily is on the top screen standing at the top of the roof with a box full of bombs. The player character is on the bottom screen with some sort of container in his hands. Honestly, I'm not even sure I understand what is going on with this building. It kind of just looks like he's dropping bombs through the roof, which fall through the bank and somehow into the basement where the player must then catch them. However, you aren't safe once you catch them. Your container can only hold 3 bombs, and you have to constantly dump them down either side of the bank to prevent your container from overflowing. Wait, I'm just dumping the bombs off to the sides willy-nilly? This whole situation seems like a recipe for disaster. There's a specific mechanic for dumping the bombs to the left, but on the right they appear to just blow up off screen. I'd hate to be the owner of the building next to me. Well, if you do decide to dump them to the left, they land in a random campfire at the bottom of a chute. Doing so causes a torch to fly up out of the fire for a bit. If you dump a bunch of bombs down there, the torch will elevate higher and higher until it finally reaches the roof. This will cause Wily's stack of bombs to explode and earn you a ton of points. Okay, why on earth is there a fireplace down here? Why do explosions cause a torch to just gracefully float upwards? Yeah, I think I need to stop overthinking this. It's clearly just meant to be cartoony. Anyway, causing Wily to explode on the roof nets you an extra 20 points. Speaking of, you earn a single point by catching each bomb too, which isn't exactly all that fast, although getting 20 points after blowing up Wily helps. For some reason, instead of the usual 300 points, your lives get restored at 200 points in this one. As usual with these Game & Watch games, reaching the life refresh is going to be my main goal for Safebuster. I started with Mode A. Immediately when I began, I discovered a few mechanics that make this game a bit trickier than it might first appear. First off, the bombs take a really long time to unload. The closer a bomb is to the top of the container, the quicker it falls out, but a bomb at the bottom of the container just takes forever to roll out. This adds a bit of strategy to this one, as often I only had enough time to dump 1 or 2 bombs before moving back to catch some more. That being said, it also made the pacing of the game feel just a bit odd. Another aspect that caught me off guard at first is that due to the size of the container, you have to line yourself up with the bombs before they pass through the floor here. If you aren't standing below it, the moment a bomb passes through, you lose a life. I wasn't quite ready for this on my first run, and I lost my first life pretty quickly while dumping a bomb. Not only does this cause you to lose a life, but you have to watch a cutscene of your character stuck on some kind of hook while Wily Bomber steals a bunch of gold. You know, speaking of evil villains using bombs, I wonder if this guy's related to Dynamite Jack, the villain from Bomb Sweeper. This bank could probably use the help of John Solver to come up with a better security system or something. Anyway, it took me a bit to get the hang of the spacing and the timing of everything, but once I had a rhythm going, I finally started to rack up points. At 49 points, I got the torch up to the roof and got some sweet revenge on Wily Bomber. Wily flew off to the side and I earned a free 20 points. Despite taking the brunt of a box full of explosives, Wily just crawled back onto the roof and started chucking bombs at me again. Man, this guy is really desperate for this gold, huh? The run kept going, although it was surprisingly tough to actually get the torch up to the top. In many cases, I just dumped the bombs to the right since it seemed to be all I had time for, although maybe with better planning and quick movements, I could have dumped them to the left more than I did. I managed to blow him up again at 118 and another time at 191, earning me the life refresh once I passed 200 points. With that, my goal was complete, although I decided to keep going to see how far I could get. As the game sped up, I really started to struggle with catching the bombs quickly enough. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but for some reason, I often just thought I had more time than I really did. I ended up getting past 300 points, but I lost my third and final life before long, and the run ended at 361 points. After this, I decided to switch to mode B. The big change here was that now there was a cover on the left that alternated between being open and closed. This made the right side a lot more necessary now, since at times it was the only place to dump bombs, but it also made it way harder to actually get the torch up to Wiley. It wasn't until I had 96 points that I finally got a torch up to the top, and by that point, I had already lost 2 lives. I would really need to lock in if I wanted to make it on my first try. Thankfully, I did just that. I blew up Wiley at 161 points, and after just a bit more, I managed to make it to 200 and earn back my lives. I lost another life almost immediately after, so with my goal complete, I decided to just play around a bit and see what happens when you overload the container. As I suspected, it just made the bomb pass right through me and it blew up the safe. With that, I ended my run at 221 points, and my time with Game & Watch Safebuster was complete. On to the review. Well, for some reason, Game & Watch Safebuster didn't quite seem to click with me. Something about the slow speed and timing of this one just made the game not quite as enjoyable for me as some of the other Game & Watches. It's also possible that at this point in the challenge, Safebuster just felt a bit more bland compared to what I've been seeing on the NES. In fact, even setting the NES aside, the more recent Game & Watches have felt a bit more complex than this one, so perhaps Safebuster just felt disappointing in comparison. It's not awful or anything, and it's still got that classic Game & Watch feel, but I just didn't find the combination of mechanics to be especially fun. I gave the game a 5 out of 10. With Game & Watch Safebuster complete, I have now finished 50 out of the 58 Game & Watch games in the challenge, meaning I am now 86.21% of the way through all of the Game & Watch games. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to see more of these in the future, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss out on the next one. Also leave a like if you enjoyed it, since it will help the channel grow and motivate me to continue this series. I hope I will see you in the next step of my quest to beat every Nintendo game.